Let's talk about the Middle East. US President Donald Trump has just publicly threatened Iran. He says if Houthis continue their attack, dire consequences will follow for Tehran. The rebels have responded, saying bring it on. So why is Trump going against the Houthis now? Does the US want a war with Iran? How much will this war cost Washington? And is Trump forgetting about Iran's close friend? I'm Ananya Dutta. Let's get some answers. Let's quickly get a recap of what has happened in the last few days. The Pentagon says it struck 30 targets in Yemen since Saturday. It was the biggest US military operation in the Middle East since Trump's return to the White House. There on Sunday morning, the Houthis launched drones and missiles targeting the US's Harry S. Truman. US fighter aircraft shot down about 11 of the drones. The US president put out this statement. The sinister mobsters and thugs based in Yemen who are hated by the Yemeni people all emanate from and are created by Iran. So Iran took it forward by going to the United Nations. It denied it was in violation of a UN arms embargo on Yemen and claimed it was not involved in any destabilizing activities in the region. Since then, a war of words has erupted.
Firing at U.S. military personnel in the region and shooting at our ships and shooting at our drones and putting American lives at risk is not a good way to end this conflict. The Houthis could stop this tomorrow if they said, we're going to stop shooting at your people. But they've clearly chosen not to do that.
We also reiterate the American warning that its continued aggression against our country, with its support for the Israeli enemy, is pushing us to confront its escalation with additional escalation options. We will now confront its aggression by targeting its aircraft carriers, its battleships, and its warships at sea. But when it continues its aggression, we have escalation options that are greater than that and more disturbing and painful for it than that.
Before we take this story any further, let's look at the Houthis up close. Who are the Houthis is not an easy question to answer. It depends on who's asking. From the West's perspective, it's a terrorist group. In the Middle East, it is seen as a rebel faction backed by Iran. And from Yemen's point of view, it is a full-fledged government controlling 1/3 of its territory and more than 2/3 of its population. Not many know this, Yemen has two governments, one controlled by the Houthis and it sits in the capital city of Sana'a, and the other in the port city of Aden, where the official president sits. Along with other countries in the Middle East, Yemen joined the Arab Spring in late 2014. Since then, the civil war morphed into fighting and then blew into a full-blown war. Yemen itself demands a full episode on its history, but for now, let's stick to the present. The chaos has been an ideal situation for the Houthis. Uncertainty at home and aid from Iran have helped them hold their ground. Another main reason behind their strength is geography. Houthis control Yemen's full territory along the Red Sea. Now, the Red Sea is just 300 kilometers at its widest. But when it comes to this point, Bab al-Mandeb, it's like a choke point, with Houthis able to access each of the ships passing. They have played a part in Gaza's conflict by terrorizing this shipping route. Houthis say they target commercial and military ships linked to Israel or its allies. But shipping industry sources say all ships are at risk. The Houthis aren't lone wolves. Iran denies it on the face, but there is enough evidence to prove that the group is part of its axis of resistance. Tehran has been sending drones, missiles and cash for years, turning Yemen into a proxy battlefield.
It is crystal clear that Iran will resolutely respond with full force to any acts that infringe upon its territorial integrity, security, and national interests. There is no doubt about this. Blaming the courageous actions of the Yemeni people on other countries is an attempt to compensate for their failures over the past 20 months and to suppress the region's and global support for in solidarity with the Palestinian people.
نوعی جبران شکست‌های خودشون در این 20 ماه هست برای اینکه حمایت و همبستگی با ملت فلسطین رو در منطقه و در سطح بین‌المللی سرکوب بکنن.
But there is also a disconnect. Experts have warned that the Houthis should not be seen as just an Iranian proxy. It has its own base, its own interests, and its own ambitions. Which is why they are seeing Trump's threats as barks, not bite. And this is making Trump worried. So the US president is going for the jugular. Let's go back to Trump's tweet. He not only blamed Iran for the attacks, he categorically said that every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon as being a shot fired from Iran, and they will face dire consequences. So this statement upends everything that came before. Forget about Gaza, forget about Israel, Yemen, even the Houthis. This means a one-on-one battle between the US and Iran.
This is also not an endless offensive. This is not about regime change in the Middle East. This is about putting American interests first.
The US says it's putting American interests first. But every time the US has done that in the Middle East, it has come biting back. So Trump is betting on a knockout blow that history says won't land. This map shows all the US bases and military presence in the Middle East. The reds showing the bases that have been in operation for the last 15 years, and orange pointers show the other sites that house American troops. This will mean thousands of US troops at all of these bases will come in the line of fire in case of a war. We are talking about 2,000 to 5,000 personnel and costing Washington $50 to $100 billion. Then again, it is Trump we are talking about. And didn't he say that he did not want a war with Iran?
We will see whether or not we can arrange or work out a deal with Iran and everybody can live together, and maybe that's possible and maybe it's not possible. So I'm signing this and I'm unhappy to do it, but I really have not so much choice because we have to be strong and firm, and I hope that it's not going to have to be used in any great measure at all. It'd be great if we could have a Middle East and maybe a world at total peace.
So is Trump playing his usual game, where his loud, aggressive and unapologetic tone gets the rival party on the talking table? It's a risky game in a risky region. One wrong move could turn a calculated strike into a full-blown crisis, and not just on the battlefield, but also on the diplomatic field. There is another player who Trump is forgetting about. He doesn't belong to the Middle East, but surely knows the in and out of it. 2 days ago, there was a call between Washington and Moscow. We don't know who rang who, but US Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke with Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Soon after, statements were issued from each of the respective departments. Let me put them side by side. While the US only mentioned informing Russia about its military operations against the Houthis, Russia's statement mentions Lavrov's response, where he called on both parties, the US as well as the Houthis, to cease the use of force. And let's bear in mind, Moscow is very close to Tehran. For the moment, the former is playing a limited role in the Middle East, but that is bound to change if the US steps in. After all, your enemy's enemy is your friend. So this story is not just about a rebel faction disrupting a crucial supply chain route. It's about wider geopolitics, where the big players are playing with the Middle East. The US is threatening a war, Iran is radicalizing its proxies, Russia is looking to make an arms deal, and China, it is waiting to fill the seat of the peacemaker as always. So tough times ahead for the Middle East, and yet again, it will be the non-Middle Easterns sealing the region's fate.